questions. Okay, I love the fact that you and I have something in common, which means we're both on the radio. So your show is called Horror Happens Radio. Tell
Yes.
everybody a bit about how you got into radio and why you do Horror Happens, because you meet a lot of badass people I'm watching.
Well, for me, I've been involved for the better part of 30 years in radio. I've done, long before horror, I did swing radio back when the retro swing movement of the late 90s was prevalent. And I would start on college radio and I'd work my way through and I went on to more terrestrial radio and then I ended up on podcasts as the years went on. So I started swing, but when swing music really went out of fashion, like for me it was more, 2010, I went into horror radio. And basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to find a format where I could speak with filmmakers and speak with actors and creative minds about horror. Because as we saw with Method Man, it takes a great filmmaker to be able to make you feel something inside that's like that. To know that someone's really just gone over that line. And so to be able to talk with people, I started in 2012, I'm still doing it. And I've spoken to over 2,000 filmmakers and guests on Horror Happens Radio. And that's how I got into working. I'm flying out at 6 a.m. to go to Ohio for Horror Hound Film Festival, which I'm an associate director of. And it's among other festivals, and it got me all involved with it, writing for Horror Hound, being a part of film festivals, doing horror radio. So it was so important to be able to do that because one of the things I firmly believe is that you become a great speaker by talking about things that you're uncomfortable with. So a lot of people, horror is something you're very uncomfortable with. It's very niche. You only have horror conventions because horror fans, in my opinion, are the greatest fans in the world because they really expand and they take in so much. You don't see comedy festivals, comedy fan festivals, you don't see action, you see horror. So to be able to do the horror radio and the podcast, which is on SoundCloud and some on YouTube, it's something that was like, it gave me a chance to talk, it gave me a chance to interview people, it gave me a chance to get an audience out there. And I've been doing it for a long time and I've talked to a lot of people that have made it now. You talk about the method actor there, the movie Saturday Night, that's about to come out. The actress who's going to play Gillian Radner, Ella Hunt. I interviewed her like 5, 6, 7 years ago for Ant-Man and the Apocalypse. So you see all these people and you get to know them and you also learn about the craft. Most filmmakers will talk to each other, but they don't go outside of the box of beyond that. And that's something I was very happy to do. It's almost like a film school.
Gotcha. Now you're a programmer.
Yes.
In a sense, just as I am. So all of us, I think, look at programming very differently. So if I were to ask you what is encompassing of a great program to you, what would that look like? What are some of the things you look for?
Most of the festivals I work with are theme-based with horror.
Okay.
So horror has so many subgenres to it.
Sure.
So you want to be able to formulate a good program with shorts and features and documentaries. If you're lucky enough to get a horror documentary, which is far and few, more of them are scooped up even before they hit the festival and on Shudder and stuff like that. But for me, it's about balance. It's about finding stuff that's interesting. As much as I enjoyed Method Man, and I enjoyed Method Man a lot, 25 minutes is a rough number to be able to program because time is also of the essence. You formulated a great block with everything that was here, and it had a great balance to it. And Method Man was a great way to cap it off, or I should say finish it off, because you really kind of tied everything together wonderfully. So balance, time, and also finding things that will resonate with the fans. Because horror is one of the most overdone genres as well. And I know I've made several films, I've talked to thousands of filmmakers. It's overdone because that's the easiest way for you to break into the field, is to make a horror film. You make a horror film and you find the right audience and you play a handful of festivals, it opens doors for you. It really does. Because it takes a creative mind to be able to do it.
Oh, absolutely, you bet. Now I want to switch gears a minute because I have a very romantic heart, and I was following you, and I saw this. He got engaged, and then he got married. So the question, you had written something that resonated with me. It sounded like a Cindyism, which is, this person is my rock.
Yes.
So I want to ask a question about the rock because I think it's fundamentally important. actors, filmmakers, writers, whoever you are, a lot of times it is our partners that encourage us and accelerate us. And so tell me a bit about how she factors into your success, meaning what does she play into that?
She kicks my ass every day. Susan is remarkable. She's brilliant. She's tough as nails. We push off of each other because we're both strong-minded. She's also very creative. And she's someone when I made Within the Frame, which was my short a few years back. And by the way, I went back to school to Montclair State during the pandemic. A lot of people had a bad pandemic. I didn't. I went back to school. I went hybrid and I turned my life around. And I lost weight. I came out of a bad relationship into a good relationship. Found a partner. Started making films after I'd spent so many years talking. It was wonderful for me. So I met her during the pandemic. And that's why I bring that up. And my first film, Within the Frame, what I consider my first real film, she loves bowls, the quartz bowls, the metal bowls. She did the entire score for my short, which was remarkable. It was experimental, so it worked well. Yeah. So she was able to tap into that creative stuff. And what she does is she taps into me to be a better man, to be a better filmmaker, to be a better storyteller. And that's so crucial because I've never had that in my life, and I'm 47. So I'm a bit older than most that are doing it, especially going to film school, a bit older than most there. But it's wonderful, and she brings out the best of me, and she also burns a passion in me to want to make stuff. In fact, in the hallway, I think I thought we were too out and you guys were talking. She was like, are you sure you want to write a book? Because I don't know what's going to happen with the swing project. Sure. It was going to be a film. Now I'm not so sure. It might end up being a book. Either way, I get to do interviews, and that's what I'm going to do. So she always challenges me to stay the course and do what is in the best interest because she is very much that person, and she's a very highly successful person, and she's wonderful. I wish she was here to hear this.
Oh, she was here, and I got a chance to meet her, and she's just lovely. I'm so happy for you.
She's
How
wonderful.
sweet is that? Okay, so there's this little project, 16 Minutes, Swing 46,
Yes.
released September 2023.
Yes.
Questions. Okay, so first off, the black and white, the flipping back and forth between black and white and color. So whenever I talk to filmmakers, there are some that are just like, I love the black and white element. And then we just saw a film yesterday, so beautiful, 90% black and white, and then just a little flip to color. So why the election? I get the black and white because the era and all that good stuff. Why not leave it all black and white?
See, that's a great question, and for me, I'm not too necessarily happy the way it looked with Vimeo. I'm not too happy with it because it's played a lot of festivals, and for me, a lot of the faces look like they were just off color, and that's not anything to do with you, that's to do with Vimeo.
Okay.
So for me, when it looks the way that I feel it should look, it's meant to do that because it's a vintage film. It's meant to have that color base and that balance to it because I wanted it to represent the colors of the past. What it was when it was really shot on, we didn't have smartphones back then.
Sure.
You didn't have a lot of that stuff back then. You had cameras that were not HD, you had standard def, you had stuff like that. You were seeing some stuff shot on film there. And the pictures that were there, they looked really rough, to be honest with you, some of them. My apologies on that because, again, Vimeo butchers. But it's meant to do the black and white because I'm representing an era that was the root of what the retro swing renaissance was.
Sure.
The 1930s and 40s big band era really rooted what the retro swing was. Frankie Manning, Norman Miller, Don Hampton, figures like that, the Glenn Miller Orchestra, Benny Goodman, they were all huge influences. Louis Jordan, Louis Prima, huge influences. That's all from the past. So I wanted those black and white to represent the past for it. The color, I wanted it not to really stand out. I didn't want it to pop because I wanted it to feel like it was something made back then. Yeah, so that's why those colors are like that. That's why it's like that. And I think it works for what it is. It's also a student film, mind you. At the heart, it's a student film. It's shot on iPhones. And one of the biggest challenges was it's shot on 3 different iPhones. And to be able to take that footage and be able to match is a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It really is. And that's one of the biggest challenges that came with it, was to be able to do that and deal with the color.
I bet. And then all the news clips that came in there, I was
Oh, yeah.
interested in that, like when you're piecing together news clips, because that's all
Yeah.
part of this. How arduous was that process?
It was wonderful, actually. It was
Really?
wonderful. I loved it because I got to go back and relive and be a part of and find new stuff from that. In fact, that was one of the biggest challenges, was to collect all that and archive all that.
Sure.
Because you want the pictures, you want the interviews, you want the videos, you want to be able to have it all lay a foundation for what the story is. And originally, this story was a 5-minute film that turned into an 8-minute film that turned into a 16-minute film, because the 5-minute film, which, being in film school, I'm sorry, film school puts you in the box that you can never get out of. It structures you where you can't be creative. You really can't, I'm sorry. But when I got out of it, after the 2 years during the pandemic, I moved into an 8-minute film because I wanted to find out more about
Sure.
about Swing 46. And then, as I came into 2023, I went, you know what? I want more, because it looks like a promotional video for Swing 46. So I added the section in the middle, I call it a sandwich doc, where it's Swing 46 and Michelle Collier, who is a wonderful woman. She's absolutely wonderful. She's one of the heads. Her and John are the heads over at Swing 46. They talk so much, and she had a great line that really kind of opens the door about the retro swing renaissance, which is a snapshot of it, and closes the door on it. And I wanted that middle section for it. I wanted it. So it went to a 16-minute film, because I not only this, and I made a big boo-boo, don't ever do this, don't interview 15 people for a 16-minute doc. It is a nightmare. It was wonderful to talk with them and find out and save that footage for another project, but you're using everyone, and I couldn't leave anyone out. I think that's hurt the project, because I couldn't cut voices out, which, honest to goodness, but I also love the fact that all those people took time to talk to me about something that was important in their lives.
I understand that quandary. It's like squeezing in, I have this many panels.
Exactly.
I want to talk to Jay for 35 minutes, but I have to cut him. because I
No,
have to-
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
It's like I have to talk to all
Hey,
these
you know what?
people.
I'll take 10 minutes. I'm never.
It's a journalist, I swear it is. It's
Oh,
like,
God.
tell us 100 things I need to know. I love that I have a journalist
Oh,
here.
I'm
This is
glad
so
that
cool.
you are, and I appreciate the questions.
I want to talk a little bit about, there are all sorts of historic places in New York City.
Yeah.
Why the election for Swing 46?
So, big fan of the retro swing renaissance. Huge fan going back to the prime time of late 90s, early 2000s. But it all goes back to the aspect of film school.
Yeah.
I did a doc workshop with Beth B. Beth B is one of the most celebrated and very infamous documentarians that's on the scene. Wonderful professor, teaching you about story, not teaching you about technique. Went ahead and I needed to come up with a subject for it. So I had a choice. I could stick with my horror roots, which I was doing and was great. I could do one about a friend of mine, Father Evil. Or I could do something about something that really meant a lot to me, but I had left and came back to. Because a big theme for the retro swing renaissance is, for 5-6 years, people really, really were attracted to it. And then most people changed their lives. They got married, they had families, they had careers, they moved on. 30 years later, 25 years later, a lot of people come back to it because it was a good part of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I wanted to return to that part of my life, because if you notice in this, and again, this is another thing that hurts at film festivals, there's no conflict in it. We're not trying to figure out the great problem of the world. It's a love letter to that time. I wanted a love letter because guess what? During the pandemic, there was more people than me who were struggling. So I wanted to make something that was happy. I wanted to make something that made people like Eric go, you know what, I remember those times. You know, and for a few minutes, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to really kind of relive and probably be a little critical because, you know, I wanted that in there because I lived that. So he's a great example of that.
Sure.
So I ended up doing it about Swing 46 because Dave Post, who opened it up, talking, I did a 3-minute doc on him, and he's been involved in it forever with Swingadelic. And then I went, you know what, I need to do a final project, why not do Swing 46? And at the same time, they were doing a telethon, a virtual telethon that was trying to raise money because they're struggling. In fact, October 6th, there's going to be a special fundraising screening. They're going to play the film at the club because the club is on the verge of possibly closing. And it's a product of everything that's gone on. They've been there for 30 years, but things can't survive forever. So it ended up being the focal point, and I'm glad because 2.5, 3 years later, it may end up helping them sustain.
Absolutely. So my final question to you is this.
Absolutely.
Everybody can go onto social media, they can do a Google search about Swing 46, but you are the creator, so please tell me something about Swing 46 that other people might not know that's not in your phone.
Wow, that's a great question. Something about Swing 46 that people don't know. You know what? No, they know about the juicy pork chops. They're delicious, I can tell you that. You know what they can... Swing 46, and that's why it's called the Last Swinging Supper Club. It's called that because that time period, unless you were a part of that movement, it's like a ghost story. You know about it, you hear about it, but you never were there, and you don't know what it's like. And for people like Eric and Michelle and John, even myself to a certain extent, what I can tell you is that it was probably the greatest time of their lives for many, many people. And that's something that you won't read on social media because most of it is hate towards the retro swing renaissance. It's stupid, it's a fad. They dance around, they're doing this, that. It may have been to some people, but to the majority of people that were part of it, it was everything to them that they invested in. And that's something that people either choose to ignore or people don't know. And that's one of the things, and the larger project to talk about and to develop. But also, for the larger project, there will be a conflict because there's always drama when it comes to this stuff.
So, as the founder and as the reviewer and as a person, this is what I want to say. You've given us a beautiful love story in New York City.
Thank
I
you.
absolutely love being reminded of things that are old and vintage, and you made it look beautiful and swell and romantic, and you did very well. And I'm very proud of you
I
without sounding
appreciate
condescending.
it. A lot of hard work.
Absolutely.
I had a full head of hair.
And not only that, because I know you as in we got to know each other, I was not able to judge your film, nor was I able
that's
to
okay.
chime in.
I appreciate that.
So according to my cue card, you have one nomination.
Awesome.
So you've been nominated for Best Written Film Script for a short film over 16 minutes.
That is fantastic. Thank
It
you
is
so much.
wonderful.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
if I may say one more thing real quick.
Make it quick.
So, ready? That period of time, my generation was the last time before we had the internet. So all that footage up there was all off of phones, photos, and stuff that you would never even think about you would be able to find. So, thank you everyone for coming out and watching the film.
Thanks, Jerry.